Hi everybody, my name is Anthony and I'm one of the studio librarians at the Sachem Public Library. Today we're going to be working on a do-it-yourself bat house. So if you signed up for the program ahead of time, you've already worked it out with the studio to receive your kit. Your kit is going to include most of the things on this table. For instance, your kit will come with all the plywood cut for the front and the back of the bat house, as well as all of the supports for the middle and a tiny piece of plywood for the roof. Included in your kit is also a tube of caulking, adhesive caulking, to kind of keep everything dry inside for the bats. And we also have some of the screws you'll have in your kit as well. Some of the things you won't have in your kit are a heavy-duty staple gun. We're going to use this to staple down the netting. When it gets to that point, I'll give you guys a few alternatives if you decide not to use the netting or if you don't have a staple gun at home to use. Another thing not included in the kit is a screwdriver. Just a basic Phillips head screwdriver is all we're going to need to drive the tiny screws into the kit. And you're going to need a paintbrush because we're going to do a little painting of the bat house. Okay, to get started, we're going to put our big piece of plywood down first. This is the biggest one in the kit, so it's easier to tell from all the others. The other pieces of wood we're going to grab are the three kind of supports for the sides. So you're going to have one short one, and you're going to have two long ones. The short one is going to go right at the top. We're just going to lay everything out first before we do anything else. And the two long ones are going to go right along the sides and line up right here. Just make sure everything is kind of on the edge of the plywood. Doesn't have to be perfect, but as close as you can is always good. Okay. So that's just to get a basic fit up, and now we're going to get our adhesive caulking ready. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is now glue down the supports we just check all fit and we know how they lay out. So in this case, I'm going to be using a caulk tongue just because I have an open tube, but the ones in your kit will be smaller ones that you just have to cut the tip off, and then you can squeeze it by the end just like a toothpaste tube. So I'm just going to flip this over. I'm going to put a little bit of adhesive on the back. So what this is going to do is kind of keep it stuck while we're getting our final screws in. But the primary purpose is to make sure no water can actually get in to where the bats are, because they like it nice and dry. So you're going to want to squeeze it down good as much as you can, and you'll probably start to see it oozing out. So it's good to have a paper towel handy. So you could take it and you can just wipe away the excess, and if it gets anywhere else, you could wipe it off there. Okay, so we have that piece stuck down. Now, sometimes can happen, especially with the tubes and the caulk gun, the caulk can get a little bit away from you if you put it down. So just wipe it up the best you can. We're going to paint over this later, so I'm not too worried about it. Okay, and we're going to take another one of these pieces. This time we're going to do the same thing and put a bead on the back, but we're also, got away from me a little bit there, we're going to put a little bit on the end to kind of seal that up. Okay. Okay, same thing, we're going to squeeze it down. You might see a little come out again, which is fine. You can just wipe it off with your finger, wipe it off with a paper towel. Okay, so now we're going to do our last one. Do the same thing, up a little bit on the edge. And we're going to stick that down too. As you can see, I'm not being too precise with it. We just want to just put a little extra seal and keep the stuff nice and stuck down. Now, when you're moving the stuff and squeezing it around, some of your parts may move. So just go back while it's not set up yet. Line everything back up to the best you can. And then you're going to give it a final pass with another paper towel. Okay, so any of the mess I made, I'm just wiping up now. This is all paintable caulking, so we're going to paint right over it. And in the other areas, you're not going to see. I'm just going to smush it down best I can, and even I moved it while I was wiping it, so I'm just going to put it back. Try to get it as square as possible. Okay, for once that's set up, usually about at least a half hour, we're going to come back and we're going to paint the inside of the bat house. Now I'm using black because I just happen to have some extra black paint laying around, but you can use any dark color that you have, any dark browns, dark greens, anything like that would be more than fine. So what you're going to want to do is just put a nice even coat all over the inside of the bat house. Okay, and you're also going to want to get some on the sides. And then you can go up and paint this whole area too. Just be careful, even though some people stain their bat houses, I wouldn't recommend it. But if you do plan on staining anything and the black paint goes over to the side, you're going to have to sand that back off. So if you're going to wind up staining it, just be really careful when you're painting this part. And this is plywood anyway, so like I said, I wouldn't really recommend staining it. But you're going to paint this whole area on the outside, you're going to paint the inside here, and we're going to paint in here. So I'm going to finish that all up and then we'll come back. Okay, now that we have a quick coat of black paint on the inside, we're going to move this aside real quick while it dries. And we're going to take two of our other plywood pieces. There should be 3 left. You're going to have the 2 bigger ones out of the 3 that are left. We're going to paint one side of them black. Okay, just so the inside of this whole house is black. So again, we'll come back when that's all painted. Okay, now that we have everything painted and it's dried, we're going to add our material for the bats to actually cling to when they go up and they roost in the bat house. In this case, we're going to be using a wire mesh that we're going to staple in here. Now, if by any chance you don't have a staple gun or didn't want to use the wire mesh, there is also another way to do it. You can use a knife or a small saw. Just be very careful if you decide to go this route. And you can actually cut score marks all along the wood. They don't have to be perfectly even, anywhere between a 1/2 inch, 3/4 inch, 1/8 of an inch. You could just do scribe marks going all the way from the top, and you're going to scribe all the way going down. Okay, and that's going to give something for the bats to actually cling on to. Like I said, you can either use like a heavy duty knife or a saw. But like I said, just be very, very careful if you decide to go this route. Now, the one we're going to go over in detail here is using this wire mesh. Okay, so you're going to have 2 pieces of this in your kit, and you're going to lay it out just like this. The only thing we're going to be sure to do, there is a little tiny lip in the top of this box. We want to try and get the mesh to cover or touch that lip. Okay, just in case you can't see it, I'll give you a little bit of a better view. You see how that goes, and that's how we're going to staple it down. Now, we do want to use a lot of staples. We don't want this coming loose or have any issues like that. So real quick, we're going to do a quick time lapse of me stapling these in here because it's going to get a little loud. Okay, now that we've got this all stapled down, you can see a couple of my staples actually didn't go all the way down that I intended them to. So in this case, I'm just going to take a hammer and I'm going to bang all the ones down that are stuck a little bit up. So we're going to time lapse that again because it's going to make a lot of noise. Okay, now we've got all the staples down, everything's secure. We don't want anything sticking up that the bats can get hung up on. So we want to make sure there's no loose ones and all the staples are down like we did before. So just as a little extra step, these staples that I'm using here aren't stainless steel, so they will rust. So in this case, just to kind of slow the process down of it rusting, I'm just going to put a little bit of paint on each of the staples. Not something that you really have to do, it's just an extra step and cleans it up a little bit. Okay, so once it's all finished, we'll come back. Okay, now that we have all the staples painted, I'll keep them from rusting for a little bit, we're going to grab our other pieces, which we painted the back of black. Okay, and we're just going to line it up and just kind of check the fit over the bat house. Again, this side is black. Okay, so we're just going to make sure everything lines up. You're going to line up this top board with the top of the frame of the bat house, and this bottom one we're going to line up with these two bottom pieces here. Now the goal is to leave like a 1/2 inch little slot in the bat house for ventilation. So that needs to be there. So just make sure you have that slot. You don't want to install it like this. Okay, sure it's all lined up like that. I'm going to take them away real quick. I'm going to grab caulking again, and I'm going to put a bead all the way around. Okay, if you still have a lot of caulking in the tube we supplied at this point, feel free to put a little more on there. And we're just going to lay this over the top, back where we had it. Now, I forgot to skip the little area where we're leaving our little air gap, so you can go back in there with a paper towel and kind of wipe away the caulking that's in there. Once it dries, we could just paint over it when we paint the rest of the bat house, so it's no big deal. Okay. Just going to press it down a little bit so it smushes out. Okay. Okay. It looks pretty good. All right. Now, while we have that setting up, we're going to get ready to screw in some of the stuff. Okay. So now the next part we're going to do is screw all of these boards down, and at the same time we put these screws in, it's going to actually pull all these together. So we're using the screw to keep it together and not the caulk. Okay, so in this case, to make it a little bit easier, I'm going to use a drill just to start the holes for my screws. Then I'm going to take the screwdriver and turn them in. Okay. And take your time and make sure the wood boards don't shift. If you have to clamp it or hold it down or ask someone to hold it for you, make things a little bit easier. Okay, so I'm going to go around and screw all these in. Okay, so now that we got this all screwed down, we're actually going to put a simple little roof on the top of the bat house, just to try and keep as much water away as we can. So I'm going to grab a little more of the caulking, if you have any left at this point. And I'm just going to apply some to the top. Okay, I'm going to take my simple little roof and line it up. And put it on there. Okay. That looks good. Now I'm going to pre-drill a couple of holes to make it a little easier. Like I said, you don't have to have a drill to do this, but it does make things easier. So here's our finished bat house, all painted up and ready to be hung outside. I want to thank you for following along with this video today. If you want to see more videos like this, please stay tuned to the Sachem Public Library's YouTube channel. Thanks again for watching, and have a good one.